if you want to drain the Leviathan, Bitcoin is a way to do so. Hey guys, wanted to talk to you today about using Bitcoin to drain the state of its power. There's a lot of confusion around what Bitcoin is, what Bitcoin represents, and people get really fixated on this idea of Bitcoin as currency. But Bitcoin does not need to replace the dollar as currency in order to sort of do its job, right? In order to be a store of value, in order to circumvent the state. And in fact, if it doesn't replace the dollar as currency directly, in a way that's almost better, because it's not confronting the state on its own turf or on its own terms either. So the way that I see this playing out is Bitcoin is a store of economic energy, right? You produce a bunch of energy in order to make a Bitcoin. That energy gets encrypted, it gets represented inside of a Bitcoin. And then you transact that Bitcoin in order to represent the transfer of that energy. And so the more of the economy that gets pushed out of the fiat system, the more economic activity, the more economic energy that gets pushed out of that fiat system, it's taking it away from the monetary system, the energy transfer system that the state relies on, which is the fiat system. And over time, a larger and larger portion of the economy gets represented in alternatives to fiat, right? The same thing happens in gold, the same thing happens in property. That's why governments historically have seized those things, reappropriated such things, or taxed such things, right, in order to regain some of their lost economic energy. So what's crucial here is, in a very non-confrontational way, you can slowly drain the state of its power by allocating more and more economic energy into non-fiat, specifically Bitcoin, because it's very difficult for them to control. It's very difficult for them to tax. It's very difficult for them to seize. And I'm reminded here of sort of Moldbug's concept of compliance, right? Which is, if you're a dissident, the way that you oppose the state, according to Moldbug, is not by going directly at them. You're not confrontational. You don't declare jihad against the state or anything like that. Instead, what you do is you basically are in compliance, but you also make yourself very difficult to chew on. This is how you avoid having the state constantly going after you, constantly trying to punish you, messing with you, right? You just make yourself very difficult to chew on. And what's the hardest thing for the state to chew on? Well, that's Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is very, very hard for the state to chew on. It's not really easy for them to target Bitcoiners, because if they do so, then, well, first of all, there's a lot of opaqueness involved around who has the Bitcoin and how much they have and where it is. But even if they decide that, okay, we're going to go after the Bitcoiners, we're going to tax them, or even we're going to seize them, the Bitcoiners can all just move both their money and their persons elsewhere. So it's a little bit of a conundrum for the state. Now, obviously, if you're residing in a locale and you have to pay taxes on selling your Bitcoin, something like that, you should probably do that. But the thing is, if the taxes become onerous, right, then every Bitcoiner has the option to just relocate their property and relocate themselves, right? You can't move a house if you bought a house. You can't move your bank account out of the country. You could maybe transfer some of those funds if they let you to another bank. But again, there's all these gatekeepers on all that stuff, the movement of fiat across borders. You don't need that for your Bitcoin. So the point of this is, if you want to drain the Leviathan, Bitcoin is a way to do so. And you can slowly make the state less and less powerful in a very passive, non-confrontational way that doesn't even threaten its currency, if you simply allocate more and more economic activity into Bitcoin and store more of your economic energy in Bitcoin rather than in the fiat system. I want to leave you with a short story about George Washington. Michael Saylor often brings this up, but essentially, Washington was bled to death, right? He came down with some sort of cold or pneumonia or something, and they used the leech treatment, right? The bloodletting treatment in order to try to cure him. And of course, it killed him, right? Because if you just take a liter of blood out of someone, you're not really making them stronger, you're making them weaker. And so they used bloodletting to kill arguably the greatest American in history, George Washington, a strong, larger-than-life man and figure. So Bitcoin can do that for the state. All right, that's all I got. Cheers.